Welcome back to another episode of Rob Sports Center, man. As you can see by the title and by the thumbnail, we're going to be doing a recap on the Shakur versus Zepeda fight. This was a well-anticipated fight. Everybody was waiting for this fight to happen. And, man, I will say one thing. Shakur did not disappoint, bro. This is what you call a masterful performance. A very beautiful performance on Shakur's end, defensively and offensively. And I know, and this is something, too, I want to clear up with everybody. I want to change the notion, and I want us to change the notion of how we talk about Shakur and how we talk about some of the greater fighters that actually prioritize defense. So a lot of people like to try to discredit Shakur as a fighter and say, oh, he's a boring fighter, or they say, oh, he's only a good defensive fighter. We do realize that there's two aspects to fighting, right? Offense and defense. There's two aspects to boxing, offense and defense. So just because a guy is 50-50 on both, is just as good defensively as he is offensively. If he makes it very hard for other fighters to land punches, but he can land punches effectively, then, I mean, that just is what it is. If you want to see an all-out brawl with little to no thinking, go watch bare knuckle boxing. You will see all-out brawl, the blood, everything that you want to see. But if you want to watch fighting at its highest form, then boxing is for you. So now we're going to talk about the fighting style. And I overheard the commentators, they were saying, Shakur was letting the media get to him about the way he fight, his style of fighting, and he changed that style for this fight. Or he bought into what they were saying. I wouldn't necessarily say that. We have to look at Shakur's body of work and the guys that he fought. And when you look at the past, did he fight any guys that was as active or as much of a pressure fighter as Zepeda was? So if he didn't fight those guys, if you take a fighter that's a high technical fighter going up against another high technical fighter, then to the naked eye, that fight is going to be boring, right? Because it's probably not going to be a whole bunch of punches thrown or landed just because both are just too fundamentally sound, technically sound. They prioritize defense, counterpunching, and all those things. So it could make the fight seem as not as interesting. But if you want to see a fight where it's more so active, you take a pressure fighter such as Zepeda and put him up against a guy such as Shakur, who's a technical boxer, and you get that. But Shakur also showed within this fight that he can do it defensively and he can do it and he can remain technical. You know, he stood in the pocket, he took punches, he threw punches. So, man, like I say, just overall a masterful performance. I end up scoring the fight myself. I end up giving the fight to Shakur 8-4. Just because, like I say, man, it was just that dominant of a performance, man. And early on, you can see that, to me, Shakur's approach was kind of similar to Tank and Frank Martin. And what I mean by that is that when you look at the early on part of the fight with Tank and Frank Martin, Tank kind of started off, obviously Tank starts off slow a lot of the times. We start off slow. But if you paid attention, what Tank was doing was that he kept pressuring and moving forward, kind of keeping that high guard up and making Frank Martin just work. And what I mean by work is punching, trying to create angles, pivoting, and slowly digging to the body. And what does that do? It later on down the line, in later parts of the fight, that fatigue starts to set in. So you've seen that with early on in the fight where Shakur would shell up and kind of get into much more of a high guard. And obviously when he got on the ropes, he would Philly shell, and he just would give Zepeda a target. He would stand in front of Zepeda and not just stand in front of him, but, make him miss, shell up, make him miss, counter punch him whenever he was throwing shots, and slowly but surely dig to the body. And you've seen that in the later stages of the fight where he didn't shell up as much or Philly shell as much, because now the fatigue is starting to set in and now he's starting to push the pace a lot more. So you've seen that, and that's something I noticed on early. So I kind of broke them down from round one to all the way up until the very last round, and I'm gonna kind of just tell you guys what I saw from watching the fight. So round one, Shakur started with a high output, letting his hands go, throwing punches in bunches. He put himself in front of Zepeda, giving him a target to punch at and slowly exert energy, similar to Tank's strategy against Frank Martin. That's what I said early on too. And also too, I want to bring up something about Zepeda. It's like, so when people say, okay, Shakur's style changed, that's what greats do. They base what they identify what they need to do in this specific fight in order to win. That's why I say greats are guys that can become chameleon-like, and they can adjust and fight from any style, whether it's an aggressive style or whether it's them fighting on their back foot and being more defensive and counterpunching. And Shakur showed you, obviously we knew what he could do defensively. That was never the debate. It was always offensively and things of that nature. But you've seen that today, that whenever he needs to amp it up and put it on, that he can put it on. When you go to the the second round, and then fighting pressure fighters too, like Zepeda, man, at some point you have to realize that I'm going to have to stand in the pocket and I'm going to have to throw. Because if I constantly keep running and keep stepping back and keep trying to move, a lot of times I'm going to become very inactive with my punches, and that can be a deciding factor in me losing this fight, regardless if I get knocked out or not. You know what I mean? So you still have to be able to, you still have to be able to throw as well, and like I said, man, it's you have to understand that sometimes you're gonna have to fight in the pocket, and I think he did a good job at that. So like I said, we go to round 2, Zepeda, and I gave that first round to Shakur. That was me. Second round, Zepeda kept pressuring him as well as throwing a flurry of punches, while Shakur was a little more selective with his punches thrown. Like I said, sitting in the high guard and sitting in that Philly shell, deflecting. And Zepeda was throwing a lot of punches, but majority of those punches wasn't landing, but it was the fact that Shakur wasn't really being as active offensively. So Zepeda throwing punches and bunches at a high percentage allowed for him, in my opinion, to be able to take, a lot of those early rounds. So when you go to round 3, I gave Zepeda round 2. So when you go to round 3, Zepeda stumbled Shakur with a jab. And this is something I want to say too, because I was going to do a separate video about this. I ain't going to stay on it too long, but when they say that Zepeda stumbled Shakur with a jab, I want you guys to know that in boxing, the punch that knocks you out 9 times out of 10 is the one that you don't see coming. So a perfectly placed jab, power jab at the right time in the right place can catch a guy off guard. And I think that that's more so what it was. It kind of caught him off guard, but he was able to rebound pretty fast from it. So Zepeda stumbled Shakur with a jab. A jab can knock out fighters. Typically, the punch that knocks you out is the one you don't see. So a perfectly timed jab can hurt you. Zepeda was much more active while Shakur was more conservative. I gave Zepeda round 3. So you go to round 4. Shakur was sitting on the ropes encouraging Zepeda to throw punches, and he did. Shakur looked to get him to use energy, giving him a target as he defended the punches. Some landed clean, most not, but he was still letting his hands go. Shakur started to pick up the pace towards the end of the round. I gave that round to Zepeda. So we're going to go down to round 5. Shakur constantly kept putting himself on the ropes and counterpunching Zepeda, but Zepeda kept pressuring, bringing the fight to him while throwing punches and bunches. I gave that one to Zepeda. You go down to round 6 now. Zepeda pace slowed down tremendously, and Shakur did a good job at staying off the ropes and keeping the fight in the center of the ring, where he was able to make Zepeda miss and throwing and landing punches and bunches. That was Shakur's best round by far, and I gave that one to Shakur too. That's round 6. So we're going to go to round 7. Shakur pressure picked up as Zepeda slowed down, and Shakur threw punches and bunches that were landing. Looked as though them body shots started to catch up to Zepeda. I gave that round to Shakur as well. So we go to round 8. Zepeda looked to try and use his shoulders to bully and throw Shakur around, but Shakur stood his ground, kept the fight center ring, and outboxed Zepeda, and I gave that round to Shakur as well. Round 9, Shakur utilized his lead hand more, using it to steer Zepeda. I did like how he was utilizing that lead hand to land bigger punches. Zepeda looked fatigued while Shakur landed and with will seemingly. And you look at that fight in that round around this time of the fight, Zepeda looked to really just be kind of throwing arm punches and not really sitting down on his punches like his corner was telling him. But I think that it was really due to fatigue, honestly, and it could have been due to a little hesitance due to the counter punching and a lack of landing punches clean. Round 10, Zepeda pressure picked back up, threw more punches, but was ineffective landing due to Shakur's defense, while Shakur continued to just outbox him. Zepeda, and you might say, what does outboxing mean? Outboxing means just pretty much just, utilizing your jab, keeping the distance, being able to slip, roll, being able to counter punch, being able to turn a guy. Those are things that you consider when you talk about outboxing. Round 11, Zepeda looked more fatigued and started throwing sloppy punches. Shakur just countered while staying active, making Zepeda work. I gave that round to Shakur. Round 12, the final round, Shakur got a little bit more defensive, constantly moving and shelling up while being selective with his punches. But I mean, overall, man, the damage was pretty much done, and I give Shakur round 12 too. So like I said, man, at first when I was scoring, I was like, man, am I kind of messing up just because Zepeda was taking a lot of those early rounds? But then as the fight started, I seen the difference, and the pace from Zepeda slow down and the pace from Shakur pick up. And I was like, okay, so this is what I figured from watching it early on, that was going to be Shakur's game plan, to try to fatigue Zepeda and, take advantage of him in those later rounds, like which he did. And I put down some things that Shakur did well to me in that fight. I would say that he did a good job at throwing dummy punches, meaning that he was probably kind of just throwing arm punches, touching the guard, and then loading up with his power shots and punches and bunches. He did a good job at using the Philly shell to avoid a lot of Zepeda punches. He did a good job at standing toe-to-toe with Zepeda and letting his hands go, giving Zepeda a target while making him exert energy and slowly chopping at the body. He did a good job at remaining relaxed when he was up against the ropes and when Zepeda was throwing punches and bunches doing a good job at defending him, getting out of the way and countering whenever he needed. And he did a very good job. He showed that he also has a chin because he did a good job at taking a lot of Zepeda punches as well. So, man, like I said, man, overall, masterclass performance by Shakur. Shakur showed us in this fight that there really is levels in the fight game. Regardless if you want to admit that or not, there's levels. And, you know, everybody was talking about Zepeda going to beat him, Zepeda going to beat him. And Zepeda came out and fought a good fight. I respect Mexican fighters, man, because they are the embodiment of you don't always have to be the most talented to win. You know what I mean? When you look at a lot of those guys, it's just high pace, high energy, and it's heart, man. They don't back down. You rarely ever see them taking steps backwards. It's always forward, forward, forward. And they, you know, and if they take their loss, they take their loss like a man. So hats off to Zepeda for even his performance. Just being able to showing that he had heart to be able to sit there and to withstand Shakur punches when Shakur was kind of putting it on him, man. But like I said, overall masterclass performance, man. I'm curious to hear what you guys take of it is, man. Let me know what you think in the comments. And like I say, man, we got to put more respect. I'm like LeBron James said when they won that finals in the bubble, he was like, yeah, and put some respect on my damn name too. I think we got to start putting respect on Shakur's name, bro. I've been putting respect on his name, but I'm just saying, a lot of people try to discredit him, say he's a boring fighter, say he is the defensive fighter, and I think he put a lot of that to bed, man. So let me know what y'all think in the comments, man. I might even do a video elaborating on this a little bit more, but I'm just gonna do this video like this and put this out there. But let me know what you guys think in the comment of Shakur's performance, and let me know the fight that y'all want to see next from Shakur. But man, that's it for this video, man. If you did enjoy this video, do me a big favor, man. Smash that thumbs up button. Also, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. When you subscribe, make sure that you got that notification bell on. That way you be notified every time I upload. And I'll see y'all in the next video.